gentlemen, the show is about to start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Christian Buddy Show. Cannot wait to unpack this episode. I am talking with Andrew Gung of Core Confidence Coaching. We're going to be deep diving into a few things: the dating world, dating in the online world, bit of texting, bit of human psychology. So this is going to be an interesting episode. Speaking of Andrew, I'm going to introduce him now.
Yo, what's going on, Christian?
How you feeling?
Excellent and pumped, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have read your book, The Art of Great Text Game, but I think you're leaving out one valuable part.
Yeah,
When
what's
do I send the nudie?
that? You're funny. You're hilarious, man. Oh my gosh.
No, in all seriousness though, it was a good read because I struggle with texting.
Yeah.
I've kind of I guess more or less I'm used to picking up the phone and calling somebody, and this whole texting thing. I'm 30 years old, and I guess in the last 5 to 10 years, I've had to adapt to this whole texting thing. What are your opinions? Why do you think that? Why do you think that the general flow is now people are? I guess, is that correct? Like, are people texting more these days, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, man. It's how society is nowadays. Like, with all of these phone apps that we have, like social media on, like Facebook, Instagram, how do we communicate with our family, our friends, right? It's all through text messaging. Even when I did a previous business back in the old days, they would do simple phone calls. And now we were taught towards the end of that business, like it's all about texting. Even, like, look, I don't know about you, but dude, like, even if my parents rung me, I probably wouldn't answer. And even if I'm free, I'd just reject the call and message them and say, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? Like, it's just how the generation is nowadays. And we've basically got to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've been adapting to. And I guess far too many guys, we expect to skip all the rapport building and go straight to asking the girl out. And I'm
Yeah,
guilty
man.
of this. I'm guilty of this. And my next question is, how do we balance the rapport and asking the girl out? Like, what's your opinion on that?
You've got to, well, it's all about calibrating towards her compliance level, right? But that's interesting because I do get that question asked a fair bit by some of my clients coming through our coaching. And, and then I see their messages and they feel like they can just cut straight through to dessert without going through the entrees and the main meal, right? And it's just like, come on. So think of it like this. It's a simple principle. I know most people are eager nowadays and they think, okay, we matched online or whatever, or maybe she's interested, I'm interested. I can just cut to the chase and say, hey, let's go out for drinks and whatever. But think of it like this. If you went into, I think this is a very good, simple example. If we went into a car showroom and we're looking to buy like let's just say a BMW, right? We're looking to buy a BMW sports car. And we go in and straight away the car salesperson comes up to us and he's like, hey, how's it going? Cool, let me just show you what's on sale today. Yeah, there's this beautiful family car that we've got, it's the end of financial year sale. Boom, it comes in blue, it comes in black. I think you would look good in this black family car. And straight away, we're just like, hang on a second. We might be in the buying mindset to get a car, but all of a sudden we're put off because this guy's trying to sell us what he believes we want without even getting to know us. And, we might think the car's nice, but because he's just really thrown his agenda first without really understanding what we want, were just turned off straight away. So I think that's like a very simple example that, it's a little bit complex to it, but just to keep it, long answer short, it kind of puts it into that perspective.
Yeah, there's this notion in sales, and I'm not a sales expert, but there's this notion in sales that you never go for the hard sale, or it's always, about building that rapport. And that's something that I've learned the hard way, trying to go for the hard sale straight away. It doesn't work, unfortunately. Like we would like it to work, but that's not how life operates. So,
well, especially in dating, right? Like, there has to be some form of attraction first of all, right? And it has to go beyond just physical attraction. Like, especially in the Western culture, like females are not just attracted to guys that look good and that are wealthy, right? You've got to know how to have an attractive conversation, how to communicate, man to woman, basically, to her, where she's like, okay, this guy is easy to get along with. He's not a creep. He's not a serial killer. He's someone that I can have fun with and that I know I'm not going to get awkward about if I went out on a date with him. So the attraction's got to be there. And then when the attraction's there, at least she's going to consider a date, right? And then on the date, that's where she's got to feel comfortable with you. So there is a bit of a process, right? You can't just bang, hey, let's go out to dinner, or let's meet my family, or, shit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a friend actually, and we generally go out and, we get up to a little bit of mischief and things like that. And he's got a question for you. And the question is, he's a little bit confused. When approaching a woman, a beautiful woman, and striking up a conversation, should he be getting their Instagram, their number, their email address, their MySpace? What's your opinion? What's your opinion on that?
Email address, man. Who does the email address? Well, that really shows your age if you're going for an email address or a MySpace, in that fact. Okay, very, very good question, right? And again, I usually teach my clients to do Instagram. Okay, now there's two things, right? Instagram is a safe way because, for starters, if you didn't do a good job in the initial interaction, you can build some brownie points through your Instagram. If your Instagram's done pretty decent, like it's got some photos, it shows a bit of, social proof, like you've got some, an interesting life going on, you're relatively active on it. You don't need to be a hardcore daily user that's posting up every single meal of the day and what they're doing every 10 minutes, nothing like that. But as long as it displays a bit more of your personality and it's got a fair few photos, a few videos, then Instagram's fine, right? If you don't use Instagram and you've maybe set up the account and you've probably got like 10 or 20 followers and there's like one photo and it's not even a good photo, I would avoid Instagram because it's actually going to do you more harm than anything, right? So it can be used to your advantage if Instagram has been set up, okay? So it can work in your advantage. But if it doesn't work, if your Instagram isn't set up properly, then go straight for the number. Like, yeah. You can even just say, to play it safe, you can just say, and most women out there nowadays, most, not all, but most of them do use WhatsApp, and you can just say, hey, do you use WhatsApp? And they'll be like, yeah. And just say, yeah, look, let me add you on WhatsApp. And then you can exchange details that way. So you've got to think about what will work in your advantage at the end of the day. Okay. But either way is fine. Instagram or phone number's fine.
Okay. I'm trying to read between the lines here. And what you're saying is that if you don't have an Instagram account set up, should someone be setting their Instagram account, like the basics? Would you recommend just setting the basics up? And
I definitely would. Yeah, man. Yeah. In the 21st century, if you're not on Instagram, it's just like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, because most of my friends, they hate Instagram, and
Mm,
it's like this is the way the trend is. This is the way
yeah,
that everybody's going down, you know, and you have to keep up with the times,
you
or
do.
else, yeah,
Like, think of it like this: if when you meet someone like a complete stranger, whether it's a guy or a girl, and you meet them out in public, obviously your first impression is gonna make a difference to them. It's gonna leave a bit of a taste in their mouth of, was this guy presented well, or was he kind of shy? And if you've got a few things of like a few photos on your Insta that shows what you actually do outside of like work and all of that, the person will get a much better feel for who you are, and then their imagination kind of runs wild a little bit. So then it builds up a bit more trust. They feel a little bit more comfortable to interact with you because, like, oh, okay, this guy, yeah, he seemed pretty genuine, seemed a bit shy, but actually, so what? He does surfing, he plays guitar, he runs events, or yeah, he does a podcast. Okay, interesting. So it adds a bit more substance to who you are without you having to directly say it.
yeah. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to these sort of technology things. I like to really deep dive into all these technology things, and I've noticed a bit of a trend, a psychological trend that
Mm,
like I meet people out, and I sometimes I get their Instagram, and sometimes I speak with them on Instagram, and the conversation it kind of fizzles out.
yeah,
But what I have noticed is that they still look at my stories. So
yeah,
it's like, hang on, there's no conversation here, but you're still looking at my life. So it's a bit weird because it's like you stop talking to this person, but you still have a bit of an interest in them.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. It's just an interest. Psychologically, I'm just fascinated with how
yeah.
people. Yeah.
No,
Um,
dude, I totally resonate with what you're saying. It is frustrating. It happens. It happens to me as well. Like
yeah.
I might meet, gorgeous female out on a Friday night, and then interaction went well. She looks at all my stories, but then just sees my message and doesn't reply, and it happens, dude. Like, there's not a
Yeah.
100% foolproof
It's not
system on this.
the way that I've put it is finding a mate is like finding a job. The more applications you have, the greater the chance of success. The more applications which are not successful can provide valuable feedback as to why they were unsuccessful. And then on that feedback, you can if you take the feedback on, then you're going to improve as a male, as a person.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, man.
okay, switching to your business, how long have you been running core confidence coaching for?
Couple of years. So started in late 2017. Yeah, but the idea was in my head for a very long time, man. Yeah, but funny enough, like I only grew the balls to say, hey, you know what? This is what I really want to do. This is what I'm allowed to swear.
Yeah, you can swear.
Oh,
That's
good,
fine.
because yeah, that's me. So I had this idea for a very fucking long time, and I'm just like, dude, who gives a shit about what people think? Like, this is literally what I'm passionate about, and I've learned so much about this whole dating, socializing, relationships, and I've had a lot of experience. Like, most of my life was based around just really understanding this, learning it, understanding, applying it, and also teaching just friends. And obviously, I made mistakes along the way. I improved, but then I just decided in 2017, yeah, you know what? It's time to just really plant my foot down and just take action and start this up.
Yeah, kudos to you. It's not easy to because dating is one of those things. It's almost it's unheard like it's not very common for people to talk in open about dating. It's almost I would is it taboo or look I'm not
Yeah.
too sure, but yeah, it does take confidence to go out in the open and teach these sort of things. It's
Oh,
not
absolutely,
something,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, no, at first, like my thought process was, okay, my friends, my parents are gonna hear that I'm a dating coach, and then they're gonna think, well, hang on a second, like, what qualifies this guy as a dating coach? Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? He's not like Mr. Olympia in the dating world or anything, but like, yeah. So I had all this thought process on people judging me and stuff. And what's interesting, man, is barely no one barely judged me at all. Like when I started telling my female friends and girls that I would just meet out on a Friday or Saturday night, they'd ask me, they'd say, hey, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, yeah, I've run a social and dating coaching company. And if anything, a lot of girls were for it. They were like a high percent. They were like, wow, that's actually interesting. I didn't know for size that it existed. But secondly, man, a lot of guys need your help. And they tell me all these horror stories. And I said, you know what? Like it makes me emotional because I'm like, exactly. That's the exact reason why I decided to do what I do, because there's so many men out there that do need my help or do need some form of help in this area. And they, number one, they don't know. Number two, even if they do know, most of the time they won't admit it. And number three, they don't even know that there's actual help out there that can help him in this area. They literally don't even know that this stuff exists. So they usually go to their friends or they ask a family member that will give them their advice, but they won't really know whether it's the right advice or the wrong advice, right? So, yeah.
Okay, the next question sounds like a little bit of an interview question, but I thought I'm going to ask it anyway. So, why should somebody work with core coaching confidence?
Core confidence coaching, yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Sorry.
No, there's too many bloody C's in it. Hey, so it's very confusing. So, why should someone work with us, like as a coach and being a part of our team?
Why should somebody use your services?
Why should someone use our services? Sure. So at the end of the day, there's not only myself, obviously I'm the founder of Core Confidence Coaching. We have a head coach. So he takes on board all the ethical side of things and making sure that the quality control of all of our coaching is at a very good standard. Then I have two other coaches as well. One that I just recently took on board. So anyway, for the last 12 months, just to put it simply, there's been three of us mainly running these coaching programs for clients. Now, for myself, I've had about more than 12 years of experience in this area. And my other head coach, he has had about the same. And my third coach, he's had about 7 years of experience. So when you think of it like this, it's a lot of years of experience put together, right? If anything, we have more than 30 years of experience put together now that we have this fourth coach on board, right? And we talk about a lot of the situations that our clients are dealing with, and we make sure that we agree upon the advice that we give. So for starters, we make sure there's a very high standard of like service that we're providing. The second thing is we run everything through a very ethical standard. So, a lot of dating coaches back in, I'd say probably from the 90s and early 20s, a lot of the stuff that they taught was very manipulative. And that actually gave the industry a bit of a sour taste. A few companies went, got into the headlines for the wrong reasons, right? And that was another deciding factor of like thinking, shit, this is the industry I want to get into, but I don't want to be seen as that guy, getting this bad reputation, being banned from countries. And I thought, how can I build a brand, but a brand that represents strong ethics? And then basically my business partner jumped on board because he's like, dude, like 100%, if we're going to do this, it's going to be a company that lasts for a very long time and there's no backlash. Like we do everything right, and at the end of the day, we do put our clients first as well, man. So we do go above and beyond. So if we feel the client has signed up to like an 8-week program and they're still struggling, we do take an extra bit of our time out during the week just to really push them. But to an extent, if they're not willing to push themselves, then we can't, there's only a certain extent that we can go to. But yeah, man, we do go the extra mile with people. And we tailor our coaching style to every different client as well. So it's not like a one size fits all kind of thing. And we're just like in the process line going bang, bang, bang. Like, dude, we literally spend a lot of time behind the scenes to make sure that we're tailoring our coaching style to each and every client. So yeah, man.
Okay. From your experience, do you think what is the general area that males of Melbourne need to work on? What do you think? What's the most common problem that you're faced with?
Yeah, in Melbourne. Interesting. Like just one, like the main one.
You can name a few. I'm just curious, just to get a general idea
Yeah, man.
of
Okay. It's usually based around their egos, I'd say.
Okay.
Egos in a good and a bad way. So most of the clients that come to us, they're shy. They've been stuck in their shell for a long time. Like we're talking many years, 5 to even sometimes 10 years. They've been stuck in their shell. They've been brought up in a society, or from their cultural background, they've just been brought up in a way where they feel like it's wrong to approach an attractive girl, right? And they've got all this rewiring that we need to untangle and help them understand that it's socially acceptable as long as you do it in a mature manner. You're not doing it in a sleazy, creepy way when you approach an attractive girl. She will appreciate it, but it's just mostly getting over that hurdle. A lot of these guys are just scared and they hold off. Like they might seem like the most attractive, successful working class man out there, but they've just deep down inside, they've held this off, and they tend to settle. They tend to settle for mediocre when it comes to the dating life. Like it's kind of sad almost. So I would say that's probably the number one struggle that we come across. And again, we come across guys in all professions, like whether it's programming or software engineer or even to a business owner, doctors. Yeah, man. Like it's all guys from all walks of life, man.
It's not an easy thing. Yeah, finding your mate, your soulmate, or getting into that dating scene. And you touched on the word ego there. Can you elaborate? Can you speak into that? Like, so
Yeah, sure, dude.
people, they're scared of having their ego crushed, or what?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, they feel like, look, they're a bit scared to have their ego crushed. They don't want to go through that process of being rejected, because rejection is a tough thing, man. Like a lot of people are not used to getting rejected in life. And some guys take it on really hardcore, like especially if a girl just gives them a soft rejection, or they don't really acknowledge him when the guy goes up and talks to her. He will feel kind of deflated, and that would really put him off, to the point where sometimes I've had clients literally walk away. They just almost go home 30 minutes into my session. And I have to really prep talk them. So there's that type of ego. And then there's the ego where they know deep down inside, they know they need the help, but they don't want to admit it, but they do reach out, or they got referred to by a friend for our service. And they feel like, oh, I'm such a great bloke. And they won't obviously say this, but I can see it. You can easily read it. They're like, oh, I'm such a great bloke, and I've got a great job, and I make a lot of money, and why should I put in the effort for girls? Girls should come to me. It's an equal world out there. If anything, the men are the ones that should be just standing back, and the girls are the ones that should be coming to us guys. And yeah, and then they kind of challenge the things that we say to them. And we're like, okay, this guy is not very coachable. So it's like on the other end of the spectrum, man. Yeah, you can get guys that have a very strong ego that just they're not coachable at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm just curious and fascinated with the ego because I think it's something that you need to have, but you need to know when to switch it off. And if you don't really make that distinction, then you're gonna get killed in this world. I mean, not killed, but
Yeah.
you're going to suffer. Uh, meeting a nice person if you're
Yeah.
not able to turn that off.
Absolutely.
Which kind of leads me into my next point. I did doing some research for our interview. I stumbled upon the red pill. Have you heard of this thing called the red pill?
I haven't, to be honest. I actually haven't looked into all of that much. Elaborate for me, please.
I'm going to share my screen.
Sure, dude.
Because it's just I'm not sure if it's coming up. That's coming up here. I'm just going to read a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Having spent my 20s looking for female companionship, I noticed that the dating game wasn't what I was taught. What my parents prepared me for and what I learned from movies, it was stacked against guys, and it was a very unpleasant experience. Can you give me an example? Over the past 10 years, the flakiness of women has gotten worse. You'd meet a girl, hit it off, get her number, and agree to a date, and either she'd no-show or cancel right before. I found myself putting in all this effort for nothing. It was very defeating. It's not the way courting worked back when my parents met. So that's just a little example of of the red pill mindset. It's this mindset that like I can't attract a woman, so I hate all women.
No,
what are your opinions? What are your opinions on that mindset?
So it's a huge fucking limiting belief, man. There's this famous quote I heard from Jim Rohn many years ago. I don't know if you know Jim Rohn. He's great. He's actually got really good philosophy. So he said, "Don't wish for things to be easier. Wish for things." So how did he say it? Yeah, don't wish for things to be easier. Wish that you're better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish that you had more skills. And that mindset is a victim. They basically got a victim mentality, man. Like, I totally understand what that article was saying. I have heard of the term thrown around many times, red pill. I just never really looked into it all. But yeah, straight up to touch on two of those points. So basically how our parents were back in the day. Of course, the whole dating scene was different back then. Like, they didn't have phones, they didn't have social media. And of course, it's completely different because, both guys and girls have options nowadays. Like, if anything, females have a lot more abundance than guys because they're getting hit up by so many men on these dating apps and social media. Like, if you look into a somewhat attractive girl's inbox on Instagram or Facebook, or in their requested message inbox on Facebook, I can tell you they've got so many creepy messages just laying in there that like the guys are just sending, not just double texting, but triple texting, quadruple texting. And it's ridiculous. It's just because social media has given us this platform to just reach out to anyone now. So basically, girls are getting validated left, right, and center, especially in the Western culture, right? So yes, things have changed a lot, and it doesn't mean that these guys have no chance. Like, they just have to up their skill, right? Society's gonna fucking change all the time, and if they just want to get left behind and have this victim mentality, then that's what's gonna happen. They need to learn. Okay, how does a man present himself in an attractive way in the 21st century? What does he need to do? Yes, he needs to put in effort. Fuck, like, it's common sense, but they just accept, okay, shit, things aren't as easy. I'm just going to give up, right? And the other point I want to mention, yes, so movies, songs nowadays, I personally feel, especially movies, man, they perceive men in the incorrect light of how they should be in relationships and dating. So I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of movies nowadays, like those love movies, even that movie, right? I don't want to go on a tangent here, but that movie with Will Smith called Hitch. A lot of people go, oh, you're the Hitch guy, right? So even in Hitch, like they represented his masculinity in not the most positive light. Like if you look at one of these scenes where he falls in love with Eva Mendes and he's like asking her for a second chance, he basically rocks up to her house, pushes himself into her door and he's like, hey, and he starts talking. He's like, hey, just hear me out. And she's like, no, slams the door. And then he just waits there, right? And it has like this music that conditions you to feel like it's acceptable. Like it's got a comical type of romantic music behind it, right? And then she goes out and she goes, I'm leaving. And she storms out, goes to the car, and he chases the car down the road and he's talking through the window. And she's like, hey, just, back off. And then he won't. And so he jumps on the car, you know what I mean? And in our minds, we feel like, oh, so that's romantic. But if a guy did that in real life, like it turns out to be a creep. So, a lot of movies perceive men to make these type of behaviors acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you're definitely right on that. And my friend sent me a question on Messenger, so I'm just going to read one out. Okay. What are some key things to learn or take away from every interaction to improve for the next one?
Okay, just like any general interaction face to face, obviously.
I'm assuming, yeah, I think face to face. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some general things to take away to improve for the next one? Well, yeah, dude, that's a very broad question, but like, okay, it depends on the type of compliance he would be getting from the girl that he's speaking to. So was she, gauge where her interest level was. Was she very present, or was she kind of like, seeming a bit disinterested in the conversation? So you've got to read into the body language. You've got to read into the interest level and the investment level from her. Was she asking a fair bit of questions or not? Now, these are things that a guy should take into account. Once he's had a good interaction or he feels like he has, then goes away and thinks, okay, how did my interaction go? If she doesn't reply or she kind of ghosted me, if I got her number, then is that, is this happening often? If it is, then maybe it's a me thing. But if it's not, if it's like one out of few girls, then maybe it's just the girl herself that maybe she just wasn't interested, right? So you've got to look at those statistics. But if it's happening regularly, then you think, okay, I think it has to do with my interactions. So then you start thinking about the vibe that I was putting off. Was my body language too invasive? Was I talking too much? Or was I too boring? So yeah, I guess, look, they're the things to analyze. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenging question because it's not very specific, I'd say.
How much does looks play a part in this whole thing?
I wouldn't say it's everything, but I would say looks does count to a certain percent. It's that winning advantage, right? It will get your foot in the door. I've seen some clients go out there in a day session with me and they talk to a complete stranger and they mumble, they have awkward silences, they just they do awkward things, but the girls let them get away with it because they've got the height and they've got the looks. So it does give them that winning edge, but it's not everything, man. It just gets their foot in the door at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. On the back of that question, let's say there's a room of, 10 males, and 9 of those males are, 4'11", and there's one male that's 6'5". From a psychological point, like from a real analytical point, why? And I'm not saying this is for every female. I'm just saying this is for some females. Why are females more or less attracted to tall males? Why is there an attraction there? Or yeah, what's your opinion? I could be wrong, but what is your opinion?
Well, that is a tricky one. I don't whether my answer is correct or not, but I feel like it comes down to, well, you know, if we're going back to caveman days, right? It's like females are thinking about, okay, I'm only gonna mate and trust my my future offspring with a guy that's gonna give me the best results, basically. Like,
So it's like it's a deep wired
yeah, man.
biological. Would you? Yeah.
I feel that, you know, whether that's the correct answer or not, but I feel like it would come down to that. They just naturally have it in there. But having said that, if one of the shorter guys comes in with good charisma and he knows how to build attraction, whereas the tall guy might be socially awkward and just like, yeah, just extremely awkward. There's nothing to say she won't go for like the shorter guy, right?
Absolutely,
yeah, like that always wins. I feel that always wins over looks and everything, man.
Yeah, I'm not very tall myself, but I mean, like just observing social interactions. I don't know. I just like to sit back and observe how people interact with each other, and it's just interesting. I just see that that's a common thing that happens. Yeah. But as you said, charisma is definitely attractive. People like to be around people with a lot of charisma, a lot of energy, and yeah, I think it's a good thing to have that charisma.
Yeah, absolutely, because it builds up sexual tension and attraction in a girl. Like, you know, she's like, for us guys, you know, we get excited when we see an attractive girl, like that fits our certain physique and look, and you know, whether she's brunette, blonde, etc., blue eyes, whatever, right? But for a girl, she gets turned on by how a man behaves. Really, at the end of the day, how a man behaves.
Okay. What about, I guess, ghosting? I mean, because this is, this kind of ties into the idea of rejection, and it's not a nice feeling to get rejected, but yeah, what are your opinions, and what are your opinions on that whole thing? I think we might have touched on it before, but maybe going back into it. Yeah, rejection. How can you limit rejection? Okay, that's a better question. How can you limit rejection?
Okay. All right.
I'm asking the tough questions.
No, well, it depends. Like, okay, let's put it into a scenario. So are we using like a dating app, or are we using Instagram and exchanging details on there when we go out on a Friday night? Like,
so let's use a dating app, because the show's called Dating in the Digital Age. So
sure.
let's use it, and that's your name of your podcast. So I'll give a shout out to your podcast, Dating in the Digital Age. You can find it on Spotify. So, yeah, but back to the question.
How can you limit? How can you limit the amount of times you get ghosted by text messages on dating apps? So that's your question.
That's my question. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, in conversations, doing it through text messages, you have to, your conversations need to be, okay, your conversations need to be interesting to a point where it's leaving the girl on edge, where she wants to be a part of this conversation that you've created. So avoiding all this platonic, boring, interviewer styled conversations. Like, you want to avoid all of that. And that's a common mistake a lot of guys I see make on a regular basis, like a high percent. They just go into interviewer mode where they're like, what's your background? How long you been in Melbourne? What do you do for a living? How long you been in that company for? And like, how is this guy being any different? She's probably getting like a gazillion messages like this from every other guy on social media and dating apps. So is this guy, for starters, standing out? Because if he's not, he's just going to be like a needle in the haystack, right? So you want to be the spotlight. You want to stand out in a way where you're quirky and you're giving off good banter and good charisma through your text messages. So I would say, in short, giving a few suggestions is creating narratives through text messages. So narratives meaning like a bit of role play. So for example, you can assume the role of like Aladdin and Princess Jasmine in text messages, right? That makes you stand out for starters. So using a bit of narrative and also creating imagery in your text messages as well, without needing to send an actual picture, but you can create really good imagery just by using text messages. Because remember, at the end of the day, texting is a lot more challenging than face-to-face, because when we're talking or interacting with a girl face-to-face, we have our body language, we have our tonality of our voice, and that's like a high percent of the communication and rapport building. But when it comes to text, we're stripping away body language, we're stripping away tonality, so we're left with simple words. So we need to use those words to our advantage. Yeah, so I hope that helped.
It does help. Yeah, I have. Yeah, as I said at the start of the podcast, I did read your book, The Art of Great Text Game, and
Fantastic.
for those listening, it is a good teacher, because it allows you to, you have to think creatively when you're messaging people, messaging women. You have to think creatively. You can't be, as you said, a boring interview style person. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Is there anything else do you think we've missed in this show today? Is there anything else that would add value or would help people at home?
Well, I guess if I can just drop a few nuggets, right? Like, whether like dating for a guy, dating shouldn't seem hopeless, no matter where they're listening from or watching this from, right? Like, no matter what age or background or culture you've been brought up in, everyone has their unique advantage point that they can bring to the table, right? So for starters, it is a frustrating game because like it's like applying for jobs and you're just not getting for a guy that feels hopeless anyway, it's like applying for jobs and they're just consistently not getting replies from these companies, and they're like, man, is this guy going to just give up on applying for jobs altogether and go on like Centrelink or welfare? Like, no, of course not. It's frustrating, but dating is a bit more personal because there's emotion attached to it, a lot more emotion attached to it, and we feel, all right, shit, if we get rejected, they take it a bit more personally because they feel, is it my looks? Is it my, is it my fashion sense? Am I not wealthy enough? So they do take it to heart a lot more. They do take rejection a lot more. Whereas when it's a job, they think, okay, maybe I just need to learn XYZ skills and I'll get hired at, a lot easier. So they do feel hopeless in that sense when they get rejected a couple of times, but they should not give up, right? They should realize, as I said at the start, they should realize, okay, if I'm not getting the results I want, they need to improve, just like I have. Okay, I've spent a lot of years on self-development and improving, but what do they want to gain? Is it through online dating or is it through face-to-face? Because they're two different things, okay? They can't expect to get good at dating face-to-face if they've only focused on online dating, right? So it's like, do I develop my texting or do I develop my personal face-to-face skills? So they're two different things. You can get good at both. In short, if a guy wants to improve his online dating profile, he needs to stand out like a motherfucker. And how does he do that? He needs to have a good set of photos that creates emotion when a girl looks at him, right? So the photos need to stand out, the bio needs to stand out, and then third thing, they need to be good at texting, right? So they're the three things. That's the formula for online dating. But if it's face-to-face, they need to work on their presentation skills, their confidence, their sub-communications, their eye contact, all of these things. Like there's a lot more put forth on what they need to work on if it's face-to-face. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to share that because that is like a challenge I get asked quite a fair bit from guys that are like, oh, I'm not sure, should I develop my online or should I get coaching from you, Andrew? And we go out and you teach me some face-to-face kind of skills and scenarios. Yeah. And they're just confused. They're absolutely confused. What should I do?
Okay. I've got one last question, and then I think we might wrap it up. So, how open-minded do you believe Melbourneian women are in comparison to other countries?
That's a good question. Yeah. Dude, I was asked this question 2 days ago from a client. How open-minded? So I would say, okay, it is a broad question, but I have a feeling what we are asking, and obviously in regards to dating, I do find the woman in other countries like in South America and Europe, they do seem to be a lot more open because there's massive cultural diversity, especially in Europe. Like there's their culture and their way of living is a lot more different down obviously here in Australia. I do find, especially in Melbourne, people are a lot more guarded. Females are a lot more guarded. It's a lot more challenging here in Melbourne. So you've got to put in a bit more work. Look, females in Melbourne, they are open-minded, but they do put up a fair few walls compared to girls from South America and Europe. Like, to keep it simple and short. Yeah, just from my experience, from things I've seen, yeah, and from the different cultures that I've experienced and obviously dated from various cultures, yeah, they just seem a lot more open overseas.
Okay, that's not to say anything bad against anyone. That's just the
Absolutely,
general
man.
vibe. Yeah, that's just the general vibe. That okay. That's cool. All right. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we might wrap it up there. And
Awesome.
I'm going to flash up. I've got your website details and
cool.
your mobile number on the screen there. So if anybody does want to get some coaching, there's got the website there. Any final messages? How can people reach you as well, Andrew? I've got the website there. But
yeah, dude, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, like, yeah, people usually message us through our website, or I get phone calls every now and then, as long as you don't call after midnight. But otherwise, they can easily find me on Instagram, Facebook. Most people sometimes do reach out on Insta. That's the thing nowadays. It's just Andrew J. Gung. Very easy to find. Yeah.
Andrew J. Gung. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, it's been awesome. It's been awesome chatting with you, Andrew. And we've touched on a few things.
Yeah, man.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Cheers, Christian. All right. See you soon, buddy.